Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we are doing a lab on the muscles that move the superior appendages. So we're going to look at a bunch of muscles today. Buckle up. Let's go. So we're starting with a deep chest muscle called the pectoralis minor. It's going to protract and depress the scapula. We see it only in this big torso model here because the pec major, which is on the left-hand side here, has been removed on the right to show you the underlying deep muscles, including this nice pec minor. It originates generally on the third to the fifth ribs and inserts up on the coracoid process of the scapula. And it's going to protract and depress that scapula. So that's our first muscle of the day. A nearby muscle, this guy right here, this is the serratus anterior right here. The word serratus refers to its knife-like appearance. And we see that little sharp guy right there, right there. So serratus anterior is a synergist of the pec minor. It is also going to protract the scapula. And we can see the serratus anterior right here, this group of muscles right there, that is the serratus anterior. And if we look at my muscular friend here, we don't see his pectoralis minor because it is obscured by the pectoralis major, but we do see his serratus anterior right here. So kind of nestled next to that latissimus dorsi, which we'll meet earlier, the rectus abdominis right there, the external oblique, and the pec major, kind of circumscribing the serratus anterior. All right, flipping around to the posterior view, we got this big muscle in the back of the neck that's called the trapezius. It has got three sets of fibers doing three movements to that scapula. The superior fibers are going to elevate the scapula. The middle fibers are going to retract or adduct the scapula. And the inferior fibers are going to depress the scapula. So that is our trapezius. If we look at this model from the front here, we can still see the trapezius right here. Look at that trapezius right there. Looking at this muscular man, we've got the trapezius right here. Kind of like an arrowhead shape to it. That is his trapezius. Looking at this muscular guy, we've got his trapezius right here and his other trapezius, or other side of his trapezius, right there. All right, now let's talk about the deltoid. So this is our major shoulder muscle. It is going to abduct, flex, and extend the humerus. It is going to originate on the outside of the clavicle, plus the spine and the acromion of the scapula. It's going to insert, we don't see its insertion point, but it inserts on the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. So that's the deltoid muscle. If I backtrack for a second, this gentleman right here, there is his deltoid muscle right there. Impressive deltoid that he's got. Looking at the flip side of this model, there is the deltoid right there. Switching to the mini person model, we see the deltoid in the front. And we see the deltoid on the back view as well. And by the way, check out that nice view of the serratus anterior. Almost like that picture better. All right. Near the deltoid in that interior view, this guy right here, this is the subscapularis. Sitting in the subscapular fossa of the scapula, it is going to medially rotate that humerus. Turning the model around, check out the spine of the scapula right there. And tucked under that spine is the infraspinatus, which is going to adduct and laterally rotate the humerus. So that's below the spine. If we go above the spine, naturally, we're going to find the supraspinatus, which is going to abduct the humerus. All right, next door neighbor to the infraspinatus is a muscle called the teres minor. The teres minor is going to adduct and laterally rotate the humerus. Now let's shift gears Jumping to the front of the model here, and we've got the pectoralis major, the big chest muscle right there. Gonna flex and adduct the humerus. There's the pec major on this guy. Of course, it was removed on the right to show you the underlying deep muscles. Looking at my muscular friend here again, I see his pec major right here. There is his pec major. I also see his trapezius, his sternocleidomastoid, his deltoid as well. Okay, back view. Here's the trapezius. If you go down to the bottom of the trapezius and you go left or right, you find this wide muscle in the back. And in fact, its name means widest in the back. It's called the latissimus dorsi. It is going to extend and adduct the humerus. Looking at this gentleman right here, we see his latissimus dorsi right there. There is his latissimus dorsi. We also see his trapezius, and we see his deltoid as well. Looking at this model here, we got a little sneak peek of the latissimus dorsi right there. And if we look at this gentleman here, retro picture, but he's got pretty impressive latissimus dorsi right there. Look at those things, like wings practically. And there's his serratus anterior, and there's his pec major, and his erectus abdominis, and we'll get to all these other muscles in due time. So near the latissimus dorsi, this is actually the latissimus dorsi on the bottom here, but right above it is the teres major, which shares its jobs. So they are, of course, synergists. The teres major is going to adduct and extend the humerus. All right. So now we're going to jump into the upper arm and do some muscles that are going to flex the elbow. Starting with this big muscle right here, this is the biceps brachii. It is going to originate on the glenoid fossa as well as the coracoid of the scapula. And it's going to come down and insert on the radial tuberosity, which of course is naturally on the radius. Looking at this arm over here, there is the biceps brachii right there. And looking at her, she's got her biceps brachii, look right there and right there. And of course, she also has nice latissimus dorsi, trapezius, and some good delts as well. So there's the biceps brachii. Just next to it, kind of in the middle there, is the brachialis, which is also going to flex that elbow. So a synergist to the biceps brachii. And we see the brachialis up here as well, kind of in that under the distal part of the biceps brachii. There's the brachialis right there, and we see his brachialis peeking at us right there. So biceps brachii and then brachialis. Fantastic. We see another muscle here, which is kind of near the brachialis, especially at its upper part here. This is called the brachioradialis. It's actually longer than this picture shows us. And the brachioradialis is our third muscle that is going to flex the elbow. Here we see the brachioradialis in all of its glory. There's the biceps brachii, there's the brachialis, and here is the brachioradialis. What I always like to do is I like to find this little antecubital fossa here. And when I find that antecubital fossa, where the blood draw happens, where the stethoscope goes during a blood pressure measurement, when I find that, I find this little muscle right here. We'll meet him later. But that little guy right there is called the pronator teres. And the pronator teres plus the brachioradialis, they form kind of like a Y, which then lets me find that antecubital fossa. So find the Y. Little guy is the pronator teres. Big guy is the brachioradialis. And I see his nice brachioradialis as well right there. Fantastic. Okay. In the back of the arm, we got the triceps brachii. Triceps brachii has 1, 2, 3 parts to it, hence the name triceps. It extends the elbow or the forearm. It originates on the posterior diaphysis of the humerus, as well as on a little bump underneath the glenoid fossa in the scapula. And it comes down and inserts on the olecranon process of the ulna. So there's a nice triceps brachii right there. Let's switch models. And in this model right here, we do have the triceps brachii right there. There it is. There's that deltoid, there's that biceps brachii, there's that brachialis, and near all of them in the back though is the triceps brachii. Okay, looking at this view right here, we still see the triceps brachii, kind of like on the underside here. We got the triceps brachii. And again, there's the brachialis right there. There's the biceps brachii right there. There's the brachioradialis right over there. Excellent, excellent. If we look at this muscular lady, we can see her triceps brachii. It's got the classic horseshoe shape right there. There's her triceps brachii, and of course we can also see her biceps brachii, her deltoid, her brachioradialis as well. Okay, and lots of other muscles as well. She is rather muscular. Good for her. All right, so we've got the forearm here. Remember the antecubital fossa? So here's the antecubital fossa right here. I'm just going to put a C on the antecubital fossa. This is the brachioradialis. This is the pronator teres. That little antecubital fossa helps me find those two. If I find the brachioradialis and I go down, I find another muscle with the word radialis in its name. And this guy here is called the flexor carpi radialis. Remember, our flexor muscles tend to be in the front. And this is the anterior side of the forearm here. His name gives away his jobs. Flexor carpi means he flexes the wrist. Because he's on the radial side, he's going to move the wrist to the thumb side, and that's an abduction. So think about doing like a little thumb side wave. That's an abduction. He is originating on the medial epicondyle of the humerus, inserting on metacarpals 2 and 3. So that is the flexor carpi radialis. All right, can you find the flexor carpi radialis here? Let's use some landmarks. Look, this is the antecubital fossa right here. So I got a little muscle. This is my pronator teres here. And a big muscle. This is my brachioradialis here. If I go down to the bottom of the brachioradialis where I put an X, and I go right next to it on the front side, this guy right here that I'm scribbling all over is the flexor carpi radialis. It's in the front because it's a flexor. It's a radialis, so it's next to the brachioradialis. My radialis muscles stick together. All right, excellent. Now, check out that ulna right there. Do you see that bone right there? That is the ulna. If we go right next to the ulna on the inside of the forearm, we're going to have the flexor carpi ulnaris. Flexor carpi flexes the wrist. Ulnaris means it's on the pinky side, which means it's going to do a pinky side wave, which is an adduction. All right. Looking at this guy right here, the ulna is sneaking in right there. Right there. Get my arrow in the right place. So we're going to have our flexor carpi ulnaris right here. Pinky side, anterior forearm. All right. Okay, remember the antecubital fossa here? Of course you do. Of course you do. That is the antecubital fossa right there. Little muscle near him is the pronator teres. Big muscle near him is the brachioradialis. We already found the flexor carpi radialis. So the other guy next to him on the other side must be the extensor carpi radialis. However, there's a twist to this story. There are actually two extensor carpi radialis muscles. There's a little one and a big one. And this one we're looking at is actually the big one. So he gets the additional word longus on his name. He's the extensor carpi radialis longus. Extensor carpi, he extends the wrist. Radialis means he's a thumb side bone, which means he does a thumb side wave, which is an abduction. All right, good work, good work. If I look at this back of the hand, back of the forearm right here, here is my brachioradialis. A little bit harder perhaps for you to tell because you don't have your antecubital fossa to give you that landmark, but there's the brachioradialis, and right next to it I got my extensor carpi radialis longus. So make sure you know that one right there. All right, we also have an extensor carpi ulnaris. Again, there's the ulna. We went to the front side last time for the flexor, so now we're going to the back side this time. And there, right there next to the ulna, is the extensor carpi ulnaris. Extensor carpi extends the wrist. Ulnaris means it's on the pinky side, so it does a pinky side wave, which is an adduction. Okay. There's the ulna right there. Find the ulna, you find the extensor carpi ulnaris. Fantastic. We got two more muscles to do. We've mentioned this one already because we kept talking about the antecubital fossa and the big brachioradialis next to him and the little pronator teres. Pronator teres, of course, will pronate the hand. So pronate the hand means you are putting the hand in a palm down position. Palm down position. All right. There's the antecubital fossa. There's the brachioradialis. And right there, look at that guy right there. That is the pronator teres. If we rip off some of our extensor muscles and we take them off to see the deep muscle underneath, we will see the supinator. So this deep forearm muscle here is the supinator. Hint, it's the only deep muscle we're going to see, right? So if you see that we're looking at a deep muscle, you know it's the supinator. And of course, it supinates the hand. That is moving your hand into a palm up position. Of course, you would hold a bowl of soup in a palm up, not a palm down position. And that is it. Man, we flew through this. We did all of these muscles in less than 20 minutes, which is amazing. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And good luck on your exam. I think we got one more video to do. So I better get busy with that. See you later. Bye.